So DIVE is a handy acronym, and that's why we use the term. And I didn't come up with it. It comes from the Peace Corps. This is actually a model that comes out of Peace Corps intercultural training. But so it was born out of the intercultural tradition where Peace Corps volunteers are going to locations where they don't really understand the culture very well. And they're part of the culture shock that we tend to experience is we see strange behaviors happening all around us, and we judge those behaviors based on our own set of values and sets and behaviors that we're familiar with from our home cultures. And so one of the examples that I often give in this is it's a man, somebody who appears to be a man who's sleeping at his desk. And I ask people to say, what words come to mind, and things like lazy come to mind. That's actually the number one thing that comes to mind. Some people say, had a rough night, which is a little bit less loaded. Uh, but what's interesting is, nobody, or I should say, very, very rarely does anybody comment on the fact that it's a person, that there's a desk, that there's a computer on the desk, that the person is wearing a red tie. So that in terms of, like, if you think about the I don't know which inspector this was from which television show, but the just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, ma'am, like sticking to the facts. What are the observable facts that we can all agree on, as opposed to, and that's the D in dive, describing. We're going to have I and E. That's interpretations and evaluations. Interpretation basically is what's going on here? What's the story? What's happening? And the evaluations are those judgments, which are often negative. So because we are judging machines, we are generally going to just jump to those interpretations and evaluations. Like, I don't like that. And what describing does is it helps us sort of say, okay, that's great. I'm a human. I'm doing this. What's actually going on here? And then the verify comes up when, especially in a situation where I'm visiting a culture that I'm not familiar with, where I could find somebody who understands the culture better than I do. And I can share, like, I think this might be happening here. Can you explain to me what's going on? Put it in cultural context for me. My very first week that I ever spent in China as a 23-year-old, hot-headed 23-year-old white American man, I was in this store, a snack shop, and the storekeeper asked me two questions that I knew how to answer, like, where are you from and why are you here? But then she asked me this third question. She said, how much money do you make every month? And instantly, I just thought, what kind of a question is that? That's an incredibly rude question. I don't remember how I actually answered the question, but I went back to the campus where I was teaching and I asked somebody there. I said, "Is that an okay question to ask?" Like, it just seemed really rude to me. They said, "Oh yeah, it's a totally." She was probably just trying to figure out your relative status, and salary is a proxy for status, and we don't really care about privacy around financial matters. So that's an example of a process of verification where this fancy model, describe, interpret, verify, evaluate, it's helpful as a model, but when it really comes down to it, what we want to be doing is constantly asking what else could be going on besides whatever that reaction is that I'm having to something. What else could be going on? And